Okay, folks, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Town of Wolfeboro Planning Board meeting of June 1st, 2021. Let me just read the notice first. The Planning Board members will be meeting in person, allowing the public to access and participate in the meeting via in-person attendance at the Wolfeboro Town Hall or via GoToMeeting through the login information below. The login information is as follows: https://global.gotomeeting.com/join/918242429. If you have problems with this, please email the planning director at wolfeboronh.us if you have any questions or concerns. Okay, the first order of business is to introduce the planning board members. So I'll start over with Susan Replier.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Peter Goodwin.
Here.
And Mike Hodder.
Present.
Okay, Brad Harriman.
Here.
And Julie Jacobs, would you be willing to sit for Vaughn/John?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. So that's Julie Jacobs, and my name is Kathy Barnhart. Okay, the next item, Julie is now sitting for John Thurston since Von Dugan just arrived, and Von, you're present, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay, welcome. Okay, so the first item for public hearing is as follows. Green Mountain Realty, LLC, 76 Pine Hill Road, tax map and lot 176-1, case 2021-09. This is a site plan review for construction of two storage buildings. One 60 feet by 200 feet, and the other one 100 by 120 feet. This is the formal submission and public hearing. And applicants, is that you, Randy?
Test.
That's good.
Good evening. Randy Catro, Norway Plains Associates for the applicant. As Madam Chair stated, this is a proposed storage building facility. It's located on 76 Pine Hill Road, aka Route 109A. The applicant, Green Mountain Realty LLC, is submitting site review application for those proposed buildings. The site has two structures on it already, as stated in the narrative. There is a small building that's Thirsties, for people who know, plumbing and heating building, and there's another small single-family building that's also been on the site, existing on the site. It has existing driveway, gravel driveway into the site for those uses. We've applied to NHDOT, who has jurisdiction over that access, for the expanded use permit for the entrance, for the driveway entrance. We submitted it close to a month ago. We haven't got, I was hoping to have it back. We haven't got it back yet, so we haven't had any feedback there. But also, the parcel is 9.3 acres. The frontage on 109A is a little over 80 feet. I think it's 81 and some change. Again, that's where the existing driveway sits right now. There are a couple single-family residences that were pre-existing to the current zoning that are located along the Pine Hill Road in this area. The other surrounding uses are, as you guys probably know, is the Corinthian Boat Club, Goodwood Hawkins, and Winnipesaukee Lumber on the other side. So out back, those are the major abutters in the rear of the property. Proposed impact on there is under the 100,000 square foot limit. It's right around 90,000. I'll let the engineer discuss that further with you guys. But there's been a comprehensive drainage analysis done, and there was a report submitted as part of this application that outlines all of those details. But Paul Black is here tonight, and he can elaborate on that or answer any of your questions regarding that. Also, the proprietor, Vic Druin, is here tonight, and he'll be able to answer any of the business questions that I don't want to make a mistake of. So that's the general gist of it. The buildings, as Kathy stated, are two different sizes, a 60 by 200 and a 100 by 120, located in this area. We did show some parking spaces on there. We had a discussion at the TRC level about that, and we went back and forth on whether we were going to show the parking spaces. But at the last of it, we decided we wanted to at least show the board we could meet the requirements,
Right.
although the applicant doesn't really even want to stripe them because he doesn't plan on, having any short-term parking on the site for what it's going to be used for. But we did want to show that we could meet them, and we did want to show that there was still adequate distance between them should we have to put them there, and it's 75 feet to be able to access the building correctly for the use. Again, you can see the existing gravel road. There was another question that came up at the TRC that had to do with whether or not a truck with a trailer could make this swing and so forth in there. I mean, we made a 20-foot wide gravel paved entranceway here, and we submitted a template to the town planner that showed that we could make that swing with that standard size vehicle with the boat. So I think you have that, right, Travis? Yeah. So that was one question came out. Another question that came up at the TRC, which was the most pressing issue at the time, was with the fire department head. And he wanted to make sure the regulations, him and Steve, the building inspector, on what the requirements were for that size building and so forth. But as far as I know, and I wasn't involved in that conversation, there was a meeting between the applicant, fire chief, Steve, and maybe Tavis that put that issue, that concern to rest. Trying to remember if there were any other at the TRC that were brought up, but I think I pretty much have outlined them. I'll take any questions the board may have. We did a retracement perimeter survey, topography, wetlands delineation, as shown on the existing features plan. There's a small wetland area located, would be on the west side and the northwest side of the property that runs in and behind the residences. The proposal is not to have any wetland impacts or buffer impacts. Any upgrades to the existing road, we plan on keeping the existing road the way it is. The only thing that I can think of is if DOT requests maybe a paved apron, at the 109A side, but other than that, I don't see any, extra improvements to that. The topography is B slope, as you can see. We use NRCS soils. Paul can elaborate on the drainage class and the detention pond and stuff on the design sheets. I don't want to get too far into that because I will not be able to answer the questions appropriately. But that's just a flat picture of what's there now and what's being proposed. This is the detention area in the back. All of this is being captured and brought over there, or at least like 90% of it. There might be a little sheet runoff over here, and you can see he's got it swaled to wrap around. But again, he can elaborate on any of the questions on that. But it takes in the roof drainage, all the pervious surface drainage, and it meets the requirements. It's going to be a dry construction. The only utility, and I'll let Mr. Druin elaborate on, the only utility is going to be electric. We did provide a lighting plan for security lighting and timed, that meet the requirements. But there's not going to be water in the building, I don't believe. Is there could be water in the building? No. So that's the only utility is electrical. And Barry Mucchio didn't seem to have any problems with that when he looked at that. So as far as servicing it and so forth. The existing overhead wires that go in now and is located in this area. See the overhead wires? So we're proposing, there's overhead wires to the existing structures, and we're proposing underground to the building. That's what UGE, underground electric. Well, that's pretty much it as far as, just a quick scenario. So I'll defer to you guys with any questions you might have for me regarding the site features or anything like that.
Okay, well I do have some questions. First of all, maybe we should hear from Mr. Droin about how this is going to be used.
Sure.
Storage and
Yep.
things of that nature.
Sure.
Because it was my understanding after being at TRC that this was going to be basically an indoor operation. Yeah, okay.
Hi, Victor Druin with Green Mountain Realty. Thanks for having us tonight. So we're proposing two buildings. One is a 100 by 120, and that would be all indoor storage, where you'd actually have a big garage door, pull in and load to the left or the right. There'd be a racking system on either side. So that would be the first building. The second building is a 60 by 200, which is still, both buildings are 12,000 square feet. This building is going to be racked from the outside, so it would be a roof with posts, but you'd rack it from the outside, so the boats would feed this way, nose in, on either side. It just won't have a curtain on the outside, so that would be considered, I guess, indoor roof storage, but it would not be fully enclosed like some of the other storage buildings. You can put they do have some where you can drop a tarp down and enclose the sides, but it would not be a fixed side on those. So yeah, both buildings are just meant to be fully indoor storage, which would be storage by us. It's not meant for public use. It's meant for us to deliver the boats, rack them, inventory them, store them for the winter, and bring them back to the customer in the spring.
Okay, is the storage of the boats, is that going to be taken care of by your employees, or will people be going to the site?
Yeah, so when we deliver them, we would, someone would be there to rack, use the forklift and load the boat. So that would be the Wolfeboro Boat Company would be here. They would be the people using it and actually racking the boats.
Okay, your employees?
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there really will be no need for any public to be up around that facility?
That's not the goal. It's pretty much commercial use only, for business use, for our use.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Could somebody speak to us about the drainage? Yep. And
Hi, my name is Paul Wall.
basically, I'm interested in whether you've taken a look at our storm drainage regulations and how that's going to function, and then how the storm drainage facilities will be maintained.
Great. So to answer your first question, yes, we do adhere to your regulations for the storm rates. We do get decreases. We also get treatment on the storms. We followed actually the NHDES AOT regulations for design of a pocket pond, which we're going to use here, which will take care of the nitrogen and phosphorus removal. We're also going to include a catch basin that will have what's called a snout or an eliminator that then will be located right here. So if there are any types of oils, it will catch that and remove sediment. There's also a sediment forebay as well before it goes into that pocket pond. So the points of analysis were 4 of those, okay, along the property lines. There was one down here, up here, here, and here. All this has been graded, so it'll sheet down here, capture here, go into a sediment forebay, get treatment here, discharge at a rate which is less than what's occurring now.
Okay. And what about the maintenance of the facility, of the drainage?
One of the most important things out there, because it doesn't work if we can't maintain it correctly. So there is a maintenance guide that we put together. It is part of the application. It's signed off, and what he does is it's a biannual maintenance agreement, and he will basically be going to the catch basin. He cleans out the catch basin as needed, forebay as needed. The forebay has a gauge on it to see if there's any sediment buildup. He removes that sediment buildup. It's very straightforward. The pocket ponds are a great way to easy to maintain.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The other question I have is about the height of the building. If it's going to be meeting our requirement, which is 30 feet.
Yeah, so I believe the ordinance is 30 feet with a 4 pitch or 412, or I think that's the standard we're going with. So we've ordered, we have to order the buildings in order to get the full design, but the goal was that it would be 30 feet, and I believe that you can go 30 or 35, and it's 30 with a 412 pitch or something like that per the ordinance, but
Oh, okay.
we were aware of the ordinance criteria, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, other questions?
Randy, you ended up saying that there would be some sheet wash going to the south. And, it didn't seem like it was an issue.
Yeah, you see this grading right in here, Peter?
Yep.
That's, obviously a swale that picks up any sheet drainage and brings it around to that same area where it's captured before it gets in there. Again, I think Kathy was asking about the maintenance schedule, which is in the detail sheets.
Mm-hmm.
There's always got to be a construction maintenance schedule on there per your requirements. And Paul knew a little more than me about the fact that you got to sign off on that document as part of the CO. Yeah.
So I ended up hearing you talk about sheet wash and didn't realize that the whole drainage, all the sheet wash was going into that drainage to go to the pond. So that clarifies it.
The whole, like Paul said, the whole area is going to go in there. There's Cape Cod berm along the parking lot to get it to that catch basin. So, in a stormwater event, the only stuff that we couldn't go against the grain and tip that way, we had to bring like this. So that's how that came out.
Okay. You all set, Peter? Okay.
Thank you, Madam
Randy?
Chair.
Yeah.
You use those words Cape Cod berm detail.
Yeah.
Could you explain what that is, since I
Yeah,
have no
well,
idea?
I'll try, and if I'm not sufficient, I'll let Paul do it. But, you know, you've seen
I have the
the
picture, but I don't
you've-
really understand it.
Yeah, you've seen the paved curbing that's wider and a little less steep along the edges of parking lots?
Yeah?
That's Cape Cod berm.
What makes it Cape Cod?
That's just the term for it in the industry.
It's what they
Yeah.
do in Cape Cod.
Yeah, it probably comes from Cape Cod. Yeah.
Oh.
Mike?
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Couple of questions. Question for Victor really quickly. What are your hours of operation planned to be?
Yeah, I think we just plan on regular business hours, 8 to 6 or whatever. It's nothing, no special hours really.
So
I mean, there will be
it'll-
lighting and motion lighting in case somebody drives back there, but it's not anticipated to be lit. The intent and the way we showed it was the same as the filter bed property, so that I think the lights stay on until 8 o'clock and then they revert to motion after that. And you know, in case somebody drives back for security issues.
But there'll be no operation on the site after about 6 o'clock at night? Deliveries of boats to be stored?
No, it should be 6 o'clock, you know, 8 to 6 would be a normal operation time.
And the public will be driving their boats onto the site or not? Be your employees only?
Yeah, that's not the intent. I mean, every now and then probably somebody will go rolling back there, but we don't intend to put signage out there and indicate anyone to go there. So it's similar to the other, like the Corinthian, or a butter, the Corinthian, you wouldn't know that there's 3 buildings there unless you drove in, but, you know, it's not publicly noticed and no one would really try to keep it that way. You really don't want people back there fooling around, backing boats around, and they're not all that great with trailers and boats always, so.
Okay, will the driveway entrance be controlled in any way? Will access be controlled by a gate or by a chain, or will there be any kind of control, or will it be open to 109A?
So at the street, that'll remain all the way as it is today, open, because Thirsties and there's a residence back there, so those would remain. Beyond that point, when you're around the corner, right now our goal is to just leave it not gated. But if anything was going on back there that created a situation, we'd gate it at a later date. But at this time, no.
Okay. When the boats are delivered to you for storage, where will their bilges and their sumps be drained?
Well, these boats that are storage would already be winterized, so they'd be coming from wherever we have a couple of marinas that have talked to us that need storage around the lake. So some on this side of the lake, Melbourne, and the Laconia side. So we have 3 different places that are asking for storage, so they would be done at their facility.
Do you anticipate draining the bilge and draining the sump and draining the gas from the engines on this site or elsewhere on the site, say on Filter Bed Road or elsewhere in Wolfeboro?
No, these plan on being done, this is storage, so this isn't intended to be a service facility.
Understood, but somehow these boats have to get stored with empty gas tanks, empty engines, and empty bilges.
Well, nobody empties the gas tank. You usually put an additive in so it doesn't absorb too much moisture, but you don't typically drain the fuel out of the boats.
They don't.
You winterize them. Depending on the year of the boat, there's different procedures for winterizing. And you put essentially an antifreeze in the system to keep everything, the engine from freezing up.
And the same thing with the oil sump and the same thing with the actual water bilge. Those will be left as delivered to you, or will they be drained elsewhere, or what?
Yeah, they don't allow me to service any boats. I want to be clear on that. So,
Yeah.
Charlie. So Charlie's asking.
Yeah, so the boats where they're serviced.
Can you
is
identify yourself, please?
Charles Hartford.
Thank you.
So when the boats are being serviced, wherever they come from, there's no oil being drained out of these. The oil stays, the oil may be changed at the facility and disposed of, but there's no oil that's drained out of the bilge hole itself. There's nothing that comes, you may have rainwater or anything like that that collects in your boat that 90% of the time before it gets anywhere is bilged overboard anyways because of an automatic bilge pump. But there's nothing that's coming out of that bilge that's hazardous by any means.
Okay, I just want to get a sense of what happens to the boats, and are they drained elsewhere, or are they not drained? And I guess I have that
No,
understanding now.
if they come from another facility, they'll all, the water will be drained out of the engine.
Yep.
The engine transferred, and then the plugs and everything's back in the boat.
Okay,
So everything will be contained in the boat itself. There should be no drainage of anything.
okay, thank you.
Mike, the standard process associated with DES and New Hampshire Lakes Association is a clean drain and dry, as in the bilge is opened at the lake so that there's no transfer of organisms that we don't want to have going between lakes. So the bilge is supposedly drained at the lake itself.
Okay. Okay.
And a lot of these places have oil absorbent, they look like a diaper rag,
Yeah,
that goes in the boat, that floats in there and collects any debris of oil or fluids that are foreign. That's not, it absorbs everything but water.
okay.
So you don't have a lot of
I was just concerned that we were going to be getting materials drained onto the site that are not currently on site, and I guess I don't have that concern now, so thank you for that information.
Yep.
I think I had one other question. On your, this would be a question for Paul, on sheet C3, your catch basin sediment trap design calls for inspection after every quarter-inch rain event.
That is correct, during construction, yep.
How is that actually going to be managed?
Oh, it's,
Someone is going to have to sign off on this periodically, that this has been done, and someone else is going to have to check to be sure that he did what he was supposed to have done? Is that how it works?
that is how it works. So basically what you're doing is following the standards of the EPA's stormwater pollution plan. And after a quarter-inch of rain, you send the inspector out to walk the site, make sure that there's no pollution that's transmitted off the site.
Who is the inspector?
It depends on who Green Mountain Realty would like to hire.
So it's assigned by the owner then?
Yeah, that's how it's usually typical. And it's very important that it's all part of construction phases, as you're familiar with the EPA stormwater prevention. Must be
Okay,
familiar
thank
with
you,
that.
Paul.
You must be. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. you want
Thank you.
to- okay,
I'm interested that it is a 1/4-inch rain event, which to me is a good move. Normally, it takes a whole lot of more than an inch of rain to have streams go up, but if you're dealing with pavement and things like that, a 1/4 inch can really change things. So that's a very good number.
It is a great number, and then you also do what's periodic inspection every 2 weeks, whether there is rain or not rain during construction, to make sure that your sediment controls are still stable, that there's not transmission of any of the sediment leaving the site onto the road, because that also can move pollutants down to rivers, and that's not what we want to ultimately go down to the lake. So,
Okay, Susan, Ron?
Just to make it clear, so there will be no cleaning, washing of the boats and no service of the boats on this site?
but that is correct. I mean, that's the intention. There's not. They'll be done in another location as stated before.
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, we did include, I'm sorry, I might have just gone over fast when I talked about the catch basin. There's that one catch basin I said that does have what's called a hood on it and a sump. And what a hood is, it protects that if there's any type of oil that is coming off the pavement, just in case. Inside there, It's basically an oil-water separator with what's called a sponge. It's just very similar to what's that sponge that was just spoken about earlier that was in the boat. So if there are any hydrocarbons, it will absorb that and then separates, basically a mini oil-water separator. And that's what we've decided to put on the site as extra protection.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question for you on your pocket pond. The floor of the pond itself there, is that just going to be loamed and seeded, or is that going to have any of the special drainage materials in there for absorption so that some of the stormwater would actually be reintroduced into the ground before it could build up and come out over the spillway? Or I didn't see the detail on what the floor of that was going to look like.
It will be turfed.
Turf, okay.
Yeah, it will be turfed. It will be a seed mixture that allows it to be saturated for long periods of time.
Yeah.
The idea that a pocket pond, it actually sits there with water in there for about 72 hours to allow this absorption of nitrogen and phosphorus, and then slowly releases it out.
Okay.
And so those standards, we just follow those standards that the NHDAS put together, which was originally studied at UNH. We just follow those standards.
You all set?
Yep.
Okay, Julie, did you have any questions? Okay. Tavis, did you have any additional information?
I don't have any additional information to add other than what was presented tonight or what was essentially glossed over in the staff review. The staff review is as short as it is because they basically nailed all of the bullets in the regulations, so staff has no concerns with the board accepting this complete moving forward. And I do have some recommended conditions should the board be ready at that time.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll now
So moved.
entertain a motion to accept the application.
So moved.
Okay. Motion has been made.
Seconded.
And seconded. Okay. Everyone in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, now going to open the public hearing. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak to this application, please come on up and identify yourself and ask your questions.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Call. I'm one of the abutters, and yeah, I'm in this lot right over here. I just was wondering how many boats lots, how many boats would be able to be stored, and are both buildings for boat storage?
Yes, that's what I understand.
Is there an idea of a count of how many boats?
Okay, applicant.
I was just
What was the
curious.
answer to that?
Slightly over 100
Total?
each building. I was just curious because I'm kind of sandwiched in between the boat storage on the other side of me. So just wanted to know
Yeah.
how many trips in and out, beginning of the season and the end of the season. So I just wanted to get an idea of that.
Right.
That was really my only question.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, any other member of the public? Okay.
One further question.
Yes.
Question for Victor, Mr. Druin. If you're looking at 100 boats per building, you're looking at 200 boats. When do you think your busiest period will be? And when do you think your slack periods will likely to be?
So the busiest, people will start pulling in September. September, October will be busy, and then, for loading the building. And we're hoping to have probably this season at least one building complete. I don't know that we'll get the second one completed this year. Just material supply delivery stuff that's going on right now. And then for reintroducing them to the lake anytime after, they'll start coming out late May, late April, early May, June. But, everybody wants them in the lake by July 4th. So, May, June would expect to be that busy time to get everybody back in the lake.
So you're looking around 2 months in the beginning of the season and 2 months at the end of the season?
Yes,
And the rest of the time, the site will be pretty quiet?
it should be, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Victor.
Okay.
But this is not a concierge service where you end up going and bringing boats in and then taking them back out?
I think it's just too much of a hassle trying to get stuff down at the town docks and stuff, so no, that's not the intent. It's really a marina type operation where you've got them right local.
So it's winter storage only?
That's the goal, yeah.
Okay, Randy, could I just ask you a question about the landscaping? Why do you feel as if this meets the criteria in the landscaping section of the regs?
Okay, on the landscaping, we didn't provide much of a landscape plan on this one because when we talked about it at the TRC, it was so far back and what the purpose was. We thought if we loam and seed the area that's being proposed to be built, that there really wasn't any. And if we don't have the parking, which sounds like is the general consensus of the board, then the main landscaping requirement is, a tree for so many spaces or whatever. And if you look at the site, we're leaving. It's got quite a green area already. I mean, this whole area, this is going to be where the tree line is. So I guess why we think we meet the landscaping requirements is because in this particular situation, I think because we're leaving all of this green all the way around, there really didn't seem to be a need for anything more fancy than that, quite honestly. So,
Okay, all right. Tavis, did you want to?
I was just going to point out that they're not proposing to remove any of the trees on the site.
Yeah, right.
So-
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay.
Question for Randy while he's up here.
Yep.
Randy, will you need an updated DOT entrance permit on this?
Yeah, we're gonna, because it's an expanded use under state jurisdiction, we had to apply for a DOT permit. To be quite honest with you, I didn't find an existing one in the files. I found one for another site plan that was actually given, the permit was given by the town, which didn't have a state entrance permit. And, but no, in this case, similar to what we did for Accidents Happen, what we had to do, again, for Harriman Hill, in that section had to get upgraded state permits. And again, like I said earlier, I was hoping to have at least feedback back from them. We've had pretty good luck with District 3. The speed limit is, I think, 30 miles an hour. Not that everybody goes that, I understand. So the state will look at it. They will decide if there needs to be any adjustments to what's there now, given the use. They've got the plans, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if they asked for a paved apron with the right grade in the front. But I don't see, based on the projected use of this, that they'd require anything more than that. I mean, they didn't even require a decel lane or a left-hand turn for Harriman Hill, so this is obviously well under that. So.
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Tavis, did you have some suggested conditions?
I did. The first one just references the plan set that was submitted. Of course, that also includes the full drainage report that's part of the record. I am recommending the board add a condition that no outdoor storage be permitted, to make this very clear that there is no boats, trailers, or other accoutrements left around the buildings. Everything's indoors. And then the other two are that the applicant's responsible for all recording fees, and that any and all documentation submitted and the more restrictive thereof becomes a permanent record.
Okay, so you think that the drainage is in the first condition then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the full submittal included an entire drainage report that is referenced in all of the materials.
Okay, all right. Hours of operation, do we need hours of operation? When?
8 to 6. We're set on that.
Okay, all right. And what about the height of the building? Do we need to include that?
Not my opinion, the board needs to add it. The regulations set the height limit, and if they need to exceed that, they'll have to obtain a variance before moving forward.
I think that's adequate,
Yeah,
too.
okay, all right, very good. Okay,
Another
yeah, go ahead.
question, I think that if there are any architectural standards, because this is site plan review, I would suggest that because it's so far back in the woods, it doesn't really apply to the
Okay,
purpose of the
right.
architectural standards.
Do we need to waive them?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, then let's leave them alone.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'll close the public hearing now, and is anybody interested in making a motion on this?
Sure, I'll be happy to make a motion that the board approve case number 2021-09, tax map 176-004, for the use as described in the application, along with the 4 conditions of approval as stated by the planner.
Okay, thank you. Somebody want to second that motion?
Seconded?
All right, very good. Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 3 and 5 Hattie Lane, a voluntary lot merger. Anything?
I can give a quick background where people are leaving. This are 2 adjacent 1-acre pieces, or approximately 1-acre pieces, that the applicant would like to merge together. One has a house on it, the other one is essentially vacant. One of them does meet the existing frontage requirement, the other one does not, but that all becomes resolved with the merger as proposed. So staff recommends acceptance as submitted.
Okay.
Only recommended condition, of course, is that the applicant be responsible for paying the fees for recording the notice of merger.
All right, very good. Anybody have any questions?
I apologize, I didn't do enough research. What body of water does this abut?
Sergeant's
Sergeant's
Pond.
Pond.
Sergeant's Pond.
Okay.
There's a conservation easement that'll remain following the merger.
Correct.
Okay, anyone have any issues? Okay, if somebody be willing to make a motion to approve this merger?
So moved.
Okay, thank you.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, very good. Okay, and then David Peterson from 280 South Main Street apparently has some funds that he wants returned.
Yeah, just for the board's edification, since I got here or began working in Wolfeboro, Terry and I have been sending letters out to project proponents from days gone by that happen to have money sitting in town accounts. I think this was the 2nd or 3rd reach out to Mr. Peterson when he said, "Oh, sure, I'd love to have my money back. How do I get it?" So you see on the back page, he wrote this very eloquent, mostly complete sentence and said, "I'd like my money back." I went through the file after Terry had gone through the file. Everything that the planning board has as a condition or that the town has any concern over has been addressed. And I recommend the board motion to authorize release of the $1,790 plus any interest. And I will forward that then to the select board, who can move to the next step if you so move.
Okay, all right, great.
And you verified that all the work is complete?
Yes.
So everything is A-OK over there.
Everything is complete.
All right, very good. Okay.
Madam Chairman, I move to the board approve return of $1,790 plus any accrued interest to date to David Peterson, address 280 South Main Street, as return of planning board surety funds for 280 South Main Street.
Okay, thank you. Motion has been made. Seconded?
Seconded.
Second. Okay, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, very good. Okay, let's see, committee reports. Stormwater drainage regulations. We now have Conservation Commission, Wolfeboro Waters, and the Wentworth Watershed group is also going to be looking at this. So anyway, that is all in progress at this point. So that's all I've got to report on that. How about drive-through restaurants?
There's nothing to report. There's not more than an update from the last report of the last meeting of the planning board. The June 11 notice is confirmed. It will be going into Granite State News on track. The Great Hall has been reserved for July 8, and everything else is as it should be. Also ticketing.
Okay, so I hope everybody has July 8th on their calendar, because that's a special meeting.
Special meeting, draw your attention to the Facebook Wolfeboro community pages where people are shouting very loudly, "No, we don't want one." So it will be an interesting time. July 8th, that is.
Right. Okay.
So I just noticed in the notes something about a circle format, and if we have a lot of people here, will that work?
Yeah, we haven't decided on that yet.
No, I don't think we decided. I think my thought was to play it entirely by ear. You know, I mean, these chairs are not nailed to the floor. So if we do a circle and there's 500 people, then we do something different. But, you know, we just adapt to whatever the needs are at the time. So that's how I would do it.
Is
that
there any
okay?
way we can find out an expected amount of people attending?
I don't know how we would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, judging from the noise I've seen on Facebook, there's a lot of feeling, but it's easy to say no with a keyboard compared to coming in physically and sitting in a room for an hour or so. So I don't know how much that is going to translate into physical presence here. But back in the day, it was an issue that raised a lot of public opinion, and there were a lot of people talking about it. Clearly, the issue has generated similar, if not even more, comment this time around. If we got 50 people in this room to talk about the issue, I'd be surprised and feel very comfortable and happy with it.
Is there going to be a survey monkey available for people who choose to type and not show up?
Yes, I'm working on that. Yeah.
Okay, and how, I can't remember what the time limit is on that Survey Monkey. Does it end the day of our public
I
hearing?
think we were planning on putting it out a week or two ahead of the,
Yeah, because weren't we going to announce the results of the Survey Monkey at that forum?
Right.
we were just going to collect everything and then tally it all together after the
Couple days,
Oh,
okay.
forum. But I thought
Yeah.
we were going to put the survey out maybe a week in advance of the public forum. But that's open to if anyone else has another
Susan,
idea.
if you put it out ahead of time, then people won't actually show up at the meeting
Not necessarily.
or come and vote twice.
Well, we're on top of that. We'll make sure that nobody's counted twice.
Yeah.
Which should
Okay.
be minimized. Yeah. we've
I
already talked about
I thought it was like, oh, I can't come to the meeting. Okay, I can still vote. Not,
That's good.
Not, I'm
That's
going to
good.
vote and not bother to go.
If they can't come to the meeting, then we're happy to
Yeah.
give them the survey.
Right.
Yeah, we just want to hear from people.
Okay.
So, I think there's 40 chairs here. I think we should just put all 40 out, space them out, and people
Oh,
can
we have
stand
more,
in the
we
back.
have more chairs.
Oh, we have
Oh, yeah.
I think there are like 200 chairs.
Yes, there are.
Oh, okay. Having ordered them.
Remember the good old days when you could sit next to your neighbor?
I would rather not put out 200 chairs unless the sense is we might have close to 200 people, because it does take a bit.
You should have them available.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Filter Bed Road, we're going to be discussing that at some point in
I
time.
left this on the agenda only because there was an update at the last meeting about what the committee had come up with for the recommended zoning area change. And then I was tasked with coming up with what the two zoning districts, Pine Hill and C2, have, and see what tweaks or suggestions I might have for the board to consider moving forward. So the two would be moving in parallel, making the changes in Pine Hill and Bay Street Limited, perhaps also in C2, and then seeing how those amendments would go in addition to the zoning map itself changing.
Where are we on that?
Well, since you asked, one of the things I'm contemplating doing is suggesting the town take a whole new look at the zoning districts. I have any number of people calling up saying, I'm in this zone, what's the lot size, what's the frontage, and what can I do? And it becomes very difficult at times to explain to people what section to go through or what applicable sections apply. So if there were a summary sheet that had all of the zones across the top with frontage and uses going down the side, and it would either be a hypothetically P for permitted, S for special exception, C for conditional use, and it would
Much
break
like
up.
Meredith has.
Yes. So it'd be very simple to then go through and say, well, I like what we're doing here, but I think we ought to tweak this one.
What's that got to do with working out the wrinkles between Pine Hill and C2?
Well, there aren't a lot of wrinkles. I will have that for you at your next meeting for those two in particular.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Tavis.
I think the only thing now in the ordinance is just a setback table. Somewhere
Well,
there's a setback.
And the signage table.
Each zone has its own setbacks. Sometimes it's consistent, sometimes it isn't. So putting that all into an easy-to-read format makes it more user-friendly, I think.
I think there is one there somewhere, just setbacks.
Just setbacks,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything on lighting?
I believe the committee's going to probably meet one more time just to make sure the final draft of their recommendations is ready, and then that will be brought forward to the planning board.
Okay. All right, in short-term rental, we have a meeting on Monday.
June 7th,
Right.
and I expect we'll finalize our recommendation to the planning board at that
Yes,
meeting.
with high hopes that we will do that.
On the 7th?
Yes. Right, okay. All right, very good. Okay, public comment. I don't know if there's anyone out there that,
There's no one in virtual.
No one on the screen either.
okay. All right, so there isn't anyone out here. Okay, all right.
I do have one extra piece of other business.
Yes, and Mike has, yes,
Correct.
right.
On Rochambeau, okay. Just to let the planning board know, you probably recall your April 6th meeting where the board determined an application for LP gas incomplete on Wolfeboro Oil Drive. That determination of the planning board has been appealed to the zoning board. That will be going on June 7th. They have a very busy agenda that evening, and I have spoken with town council at Kathy's request to see if the planning board need to hire its own attorney. Town council does not have any recollection of the planning board ever hiring separate counsel for such a hearing. And I said, well, who attends or who speaks on behalf of the planning board? And the short answer was, well, their record going into the meeting is who speaks for the planning board. But if the board wishes to have someone attend to represent the board, that would be up for the chair to appoint. So I'm just putting it out there so the board can discuss And you can decide if you'd like to send somebody or make recommendations or decide whom you'd like to have at that hearing.
So could you clarify for me? My recollection is that we suggested that they needed a variance.
The board's action was to determine the application was incomplete as the proposed use was not permitted and needed a variance.
Right.
That statement is being appealed.
Oh,
And so that's what's being appealed.
Correct.
Okay. So how do you folks want to proceed? Do you want me to go and make a statement as to what the planning board did or didn't do?
it almost seems like it's a point of law.
Yeah, it's going to be, you're basically going to be the defense counsel for the planning board, and you're going to have to present the reasons why the planning board made its decision, and they're going to have to be based on ordinances, not on feelings or opinions. I think a case can be made, and I think it could be made clearly. I don't know whether the zoning board would agree, however, but it is like pleading in a case of law, yeah. It will be like that.
You know, is it or is it not allowed in that zone?
Well, it's not, that's the point.
So, seems pretty clear.
Well, that's what would be argued by the planning board's defense person, but the zoning board has the ability to find otherwise. It has to find reasons to back its decision. So if it finds against the planning board, assume it does find against the planning board, then the planning board has a decision to make, because then they'll get their variance tomorrow. Actually, they might just come back here for site plan review, won't they?
Well, they have appealed the planning board's decision. So if you remember the background, my presentation to the planning board is it was a permitted use and the board found otherwise. Because of it not being a permitted use according to the planning board didn't accept the application, so they're at a stop point. And the discussion from the planning board was, well, we think you need a variance. So what the applicant did in this case was appeal the planning board's decision, essentially saying, we think staff was right, not the planning board. And if they find that way, then they can come back and apply for site plan review with the pass, if you will, or the determination from the zoning board. Or they have also submitted a variance application. So should the zoning board uphold the planning board, they have simultaneously filed the variance application the same evening.
If they prevail on their application for an appeal from an administrative decision, they will not be allowed to file for a variance, will they?
They may.
Because at that point, they have an avenue of remedy. They can come back here because they are at that point allowed to apply for site plan review because the ZBA has found our decision not to accept the application as complete is erroneous.
I asked that same question you just posed to the applicant's attorney, and I did not get a clear response.
But in the alternative, if they agree with us that they need a variance, is there any impediment to them proceeding with asking for a variance?
No, none at all.
No.
If they have, in my opinion, they have a better chance of getting a variance if they fail on their appeal from the planning board's decision. If the ZBA says, yep, the planning board was right, you're wrong, you don't have a use there for what you want to do, it's legal, then they apply for the variance, which would allow them to do something that they're not otherwise allowed to do by the zoning ordinance. And they get the variance, and then they go ahead and build their fuel storage depot.
So if it's helpful to the board, as I'm putting the staff review together for the zoning board, I'm not taking a position on, I think the planning board's right or I think the planning board's wrong. This is what the planning board said. See attached will be the entire section of minutes for that subject, for that project. Here's the applicable, here's what staff said in going to the planning board, looking at this definition and this definition and this use. Here's where the planning board landed. You tell us. So I'm saying that because it's not as though the planning board needs to represent or recreate what happened at that meeting. The record is the record.
Yeah, the minutes of that meeting are fairly clear. I think the reasoning behind the decision to not accept as complete was set out pretty clearly, and I think it does reference dates and ordinance numbers. So just if they just simply look at the minutes, the ZBA will get a pretty good understanding of why the planning board came to the decision it came to. What will be lacking is anyone standing there advocating for the planning board if that became necessary.
If I may?
Recommend not having an advocate, just
Right.
letting the record speak for itself, because that's what's in question. If we have somebody there saying something that may be outside of the box that we were in, that's all new information and just further clouding the issue.
It's just going to muddy the water if you say anything.
Leave it alone.
I'm sorry? Just leave it as
As is, stands.
Yeah.
it
Because
stands.
if anybody
here's the
goes and says
information.
anything, if the words aren't exactly the same, it will just muddy it all up.
Right.
You have to go exactly as the record says, which means you have to sit there and keep your mouth shut and let them read the words. So to prevent anybody from saying anything, just don't go. If you want to tune in and watch it, fine, but I don't think we should have a representative because it would just make people say, oh, could you just let me know what you thought about that when you said that? And then you just, are not following what the record actually says again, because now you're giving an opinion of what happened on that night.
Well,
It's not the truth again.
Not to be argumentative, but it would be pretty clear that one is evidentiary and the other one is a matter of commentary or opinion. If Kathy were to get up there and say, this is the reason why they thought this way, that would be Kathy's opinion of the planning board's decision. That might help the ZBA understand the record better, and courts, when they are unable to determine from the published record the exact reasoning behind a decision, oftentimes will ask for the tape, the DVD, and have it watched to see what was behind, because sometimes minutes are really bald,
Yeah.
and you don't get the feeling or the reasoning behind what's been there. But
But I think the reason was pretty cut and dry, though. It was a sentence. It doesn't go here because of this. It's just one reason. It's not a bunch of reasons that it was turned down. It was one particular reason. So I don't know as if that needs extra support.
I think in any battle, the worst thing to do is to assume you have enough guys, because you never really do. And let's assume, and I'm not arguing one way or another, just putting out as a hypothetical, the ZBA finds against the planning board. We made a mistake. They were right. We were wrong. Planner was right. The board was wrong. They get to build their fuel storage depot where they want to put it in. Now all of a sudden the town has got a fuel storage depot there where that use had been removed from Pine Hill, and the board never got a chance to think about whether it should go back in there. The planner never got a chance to redesign that district to see whether or not that use should go back in there, or whether it should go in an entirely different part of town. So all of a sudden we have that use there, and then the next guy comes along and says, I want to put in a gasoline storage unit. These guys have got it, and there's a propane gas there right down the street. Again, there's no use has been allowed, but one has been preempted by the zoning board. We have a problem.
I agree, and I thought you presented it very well that night. Would you consider going?
Well, isn't that a question of that lawyer thing you were talking about? If they've got a lawyer, shouldn't you have a lawyer?
No.
They don't have a lawyer.
Yeah, correct. The attorney that's showing up is to make sure the ZBA follows the process very closely. The process, not
Not the words.
not the words, not the direction. Just if you go this way, it's sort of like what I'm doing here to a degree. If you want to make that condition, I'd recommend you make a couple of findings in support of that condition. So that's the type of guidance that legal counsel is providing.
Refereeing, okay.
Correct.
I think myself, what my advice would be to have someone from the planning board sitting there, but not designated to speak unless called on. If ZBA feels that the record is not adequate, then ZBA can call on that individual for elucidation of points, but not to make a case, because that person should not be the planning board's lawyer, because that's not the right thing, and that person would not have that authority.
And depending on the question that's asked, it might be most appropriate just to table to a date or, continue the discussion to a set date so that the board collectively can be asked the question. When you discussed this on April 6th, what were you trying to address, or how were you trying to address this? And that would give the board time to add body to that record as a body.
Could we not just send the video of the meeting so that they could see what transpired?
Absolutely.
Instead of having somebody
Yeah.
represent what happened and how they felt about it?
I'd like that better.
Yeah, and I hate the idea of delaying it even further. I mean, clearly they want to get this done. Let's just figure out how to get it done correctly.
Yeah, if we delay it any further, then their variance gets delayed too, and they're out their use for another month. So that wouldn't be good.
I have a question about variance things, since I'm still really new and don't get everything. If this goes into variance, now we've got this piece of property now that has a variance on it, and then we're messing around with the zoning stuff to get it all about what it's supposed to be, but that happens after this is a variance on this piece of property. So if this gets changed, does this property get changed as well, or is it stuck there forever?
It's allowed to operate under the provisions of the variance that were granted at that time, and it cannot expand.
Forever and ever
yeah,
and ever.
and even if the property is sold, the variance runs with the land.
So that means that little tiny piece of property is kind of landlocked with something different than everything around it.
No, it can be, variance says, in this case, hypothetically, the variance says you can run a fuel storage depot on this piece of property. So anybody who wants to can legally. But if they decide to go in there and build a house there and it's zoned residential, they do not have to, they simply surrender the variance and build a house.
You can surrender.
Oh, yeah.
You just told me it was for life.
No, you have
Variances
the
are-
ability to keep it for life. You are legally capable of
If you
maintaining
want it,
it forever.
but I bought this piece of property and I don't need all the stuff that's on it. I want what's around it still. So how does it revert back to what everything else got rezoned as?
I think it still runs with the land, whether it becomes a house or not.
You can,
I think
as long as you can, a variance is a right that attaches to the land, but it's in the landowner's interest. The landowner can surrender that variance.
Yeah, if the variance is granted and they move forward and they build the fuel storage depot, and somebody later buys it and no longer wants that and they tear it down, once that period of time runs, it's not forever. You don't just get to wait 200 years and go put a fuel depot back in.
Yeah, you have experience with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my case, we had a variance there to operate a contractor's yard, and when Rob came in, wanted to do the auto body shop, applied for a variance for that. What that took the place of the original variance. We had to give that one up because we had a change of use for a variance. I think what you were kind of asking earlier was, okay, if you have this, back to the fuel depot, they have the variance for the dispensary up there. They still have the right to do anything that's allowed within that district also there without giving up the variance. In other words,
Okay,
say if
that's my
they're,
question.
that's what you were asking, I think, yeah.
So like the whole thing gets zoned and everything and the variance sits on top of it.
Right.
So if I don't want the variance anymore and I bought it new, I can just take that off and I still got what's underneath it.
Well, you don't have to take it off. You still have all the rights that come with that zone
Okay.
anyway, so.
Okay, because that's just my question. I'm looking at, some of these maps where we looked in different places. You've got like a lovely brown section, you got one little green section right there. Like, why?
We have a lot of that in town.
So we should,
How do we want to proceed?
Well, I have a question. This is probably a very dumb question, but had we accepted the application as complete, even though we didn't believe that it was going to pass, Would it have better been to do that and then deny the application?
We didn't accept
We didn't,
We didn't
Well,
accept
we never denied it because we never
Never
approved
accepted it, right?
No, but
But-
it was noticed for a particular hearing on a particular date, under the premise that the board would accept it as complete and open the public hearing.
Okay, okay.
So insofar as that never happened on that day, they still need to reapply anew to move forward.
But if it had been denied, could they have gone on still to the ZBA?
yeah.
Yes, they still could.
Personally, I believe the planning board could have accepted the application as complete with the understanding there was a question on the use and obligate, as a condition, they obtain the variance. I don't believe everyone in the room accepts that, but I believe many places do it that way.
So I would suggest that,
But that's not,
Yeah.
that's the way to move forward.
This is how I'm learning things, by asking dumb questions.
part of the ZBA's packet is going to be, in this particular case, the planning board's minutes of the hearing. That'll be their record. I would suggest that the board ask the planner to send to the chair of the ZBA a copy of the DVD of the meeting that night, with the understanding that this is supplementary and to be viewed by ZBA if they want to or not.
Yeah,
It's not part of the it's not part of the record, so we can't insist it, or it's not part of their packet.
It's not part of the formal written record, but there
Correct.
is a record of that meeting. I have no problem including even in the staff review a link so that they each have it.
However you want to do it.
Yeah,
But
and we can have a link available if they want to open.
I think they should, that the ZBA should be aware that we are aware that the record is the minutes
Yeah.
and the DVD is
Right.
supplemental.
Okay. So do you want us to be at the ZBA meeting or not?
My opinion would be no.
Yeah.
Let the record, let the minutes and the DVD, if they wish to look at it, make their decisions on that, let it stand the way it's written.
I think we could send a letter or a notice of our position that the minutes speak for the meeting, and there's also supplemental information on the DVD for your review if you so wish. But that's the body of the question.
I would suggest that we just follow the standard procedure. They get the record, which is the minutes, and the planner gives them access to the DVD should they want, but we shouldn't press the DVD because then it seems as if we're clouding the record. The record can only be the minutes. If they want to look at the DVD, then their chair makes the motion and their board votes to do that. But we shouldn't offer them the DVD as if it were on the same level or the same class as the minutes, because it isn't. And I think that offer should come from the planning board through the planner, rather than directly from the planning board, because that also seems to me to be
I'm
messy.
happy to do that.
Yeah, you can just be friendly and just tell them there's more information over there, you know?
Okay, well, what are we doing then?
I heard that members wanted to let the record stand as it is, and the planner would make the DVD available should they so desire.
Okay, so is everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then we can't, well, we can probably listen to it.
What's that?
Weren't you at the meeting?
We can probably listen to the meeting if it's,
Oh, yeah, I'll send them the YouTube clip. It'll be very simple.
okay, all right. So the minutes are going to go, and you will have a copy to give to
Yep.
Lou. Okay, all right. Okay, well, I'm glad that we had this discussion. Thank you. Okay, Mike.
Oh, this?
Yep.
You'll find in your packets and handout planning board decisions based on zoning regs must be founded on objectively clear zoning nonconformities. Brought this to your attention for two reasons. One, there is a thing called the Housing Appeals Board now, which exists in the state, which sort of has a similar role to the Superior Court, set up by the House and the Senate last year, and it has basically all of the remedies when it comes to housing appeals that a Superior Court might have. So likely we're never going to run into this because we do a good job and don't make mistakes, but other people have, and you have a case referred to here, Town of Franciston, Ronald Shattuck. I wanted you to be aware of the existence of the HAB. If you're at all interested, you can look up on the state website. You can find out what the HAB is, how it works, who's a member, and what it does. There was a lot of controversy when it was being discussed about whether it should be approved or not by the state. The New Hampshire Municipal Association was not happy with it because it seemed like it injected another layer of bureaucracy between local planning boards, local land use boards, and the courts. And it seemed to also be usurping some of the Superior Court's jurisdiction, but it seems now in practice to be working out. So that's one issue over. And the other issue in the third paragraph of this decision, second sentence, I'll quote this. The Housing Appeals Board concluded the certified record, which is our minutes, did not disclose objective zoning violations for the applicant's subdivision. The point being only this, that when the board finds against an application, it has to have specific zoning ordinances that say, no, you can't, to point to. And they have to be in our record. And if they're not in our record, and it goes to the HAB or it goes to Superior Court, they're going to say, you didn't have any clear record showing that you had a certain reason to deny, and they're going to send it back. We'll have to do it all over again. So in our decisions disapproving, we have to be very careful to show exactly why. And I would also venture that in our decisions to approve, it might not be a bad idea to do the same thing. Find some way of saying approved falls within zoning regs or something like that, just to be sure. Mm-hmm. But it's, in the case of a denial, it's more important. That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, let's see, minutes. 5/18/2021 minutes. Anybody have any issues?
I was not here.
Okay.
Under short-term rental, the 1, 2, 3, second paragraph from the bottom on the second page, it says Kathy Barnard mentioned that homeowners associations are not able to get the required majority of votes to regulate or abolish short-term rentals. I believe that was Mike Cotter.
This is on page 2?
4.
Oh, 4. Oh,
Second page is
okay. Oh.
What change do you need?
Otter for Botter.
Second paragraph from the bottom. Kathy Barnard mentioned that homeowners associations are not able to get the required majority of votes to regulate. That was Mike Potter that said that.
That was what?
That was you that said that.
I said that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a good opinion, isn't it?
That's it.
I had one also on the same page, right up near the top, underneath number 3. Says Brad Harris suggested an in-town management group team that could address reported issues. I just kind of wondering the interpretation of what in-town management would mean to people. My intent was that the owners hire a management group to manage it, not to have this to me almost reads like the town would be supplying a management type team. I don't know if anybody else see it that way, or am I?
So an in-town private management group?
A management group hired by the owner, or a local management group hired by the owner, just to specify that it's not from the town, you know, that
No,
we're
it
not.
would just, instead of in town, I would say owners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to clarify it a little bit.
Okay, all right. Any other corrections?
Yeah, I've got on page 2, way at the bottom, last paragraph, filter bed road, this is Mycota reported. There's a numbering question here. We've got possible actions, number 1. We have no number 2. And we have
That's a good catch.
Okay, 1, 3,
2
3.
number 3s. So could maybe just be a typo?
So the first 3 should probably be a 2.
I would guess that means number 2, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah,
All right, very good.
I wasn't having a bad
Short-term,
night that
long-term
night, so I
too.
figured there probably should have been a number 2 in there, yeah. All right, number 2.
Okay, we didn't forget anything, just typo.
Sometimes I don't think logically.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I'd accept a motion to approve this with the corrections just made.
So moved.
Seconded?
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, very good. There was one abstention, and the rest voted in favor. Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, anything else?
So our next meeting is in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. I heard something about the 7th. What's on the 7th?
No.
That's what the newspaper says, the 7th.
No.
Didn't it say planning board?
It says planning board and it says the 7th, but it also says Tuesday, Monday, or it says planning board Tuesday the 7th, when it's supposed to say zoning board Monday the 7th, and the paper has been chastised and the applicant's contacted.
Okay, because I was reading that going, what? That's not, what?
Okay, so it's
Okay, well, good. It's a good thing we're having this discussion. Okay.
But there will be a meeting on the 7th, should you want to come.
Should we
but
wanna
you all
come?
decided
Yeah,
not to
right.
come to the zoning board meeting.
Okay. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
All right,
second that
thank you. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.